Michelle Obama, you know, she was getting ready. She like, oh, you know, I love the Carters. I'm definitely not going to miss that. I will definitely be there. Oh, let me look at these seating. But Trump sure was doing a whole lot of talking now, wasn't he? You could tell he don't spend a whole lot of time in church. Because you definitely not supposed to be talking that much. Welcome to Street Politics. My name is Reese Waters. Shout out to all of our subscribers and members here on the channel. I want to start out by sending prayers and love out to the Carter family at the loss of the former president and great humanitarian. It was a beautiful service that was conducted at the National Cathedral. And like many of us, I went in with one singular question. Is Trump going to show up?
You can see President-elect Trump now entering the room for this morning's service.
Al Gore, Mike Pence there with former President Trump. I'm not sure former Vice President Pence and Donald Trump have seen each other since when? Since when exactly was the last time? Since they constructed that medieval apparatus on the mall? And we're calling for Pence. Since then, would that have been the last? Would that have been the last time? And shout out to Karen Pence as well for standing on business. She's like, oh, you gonna shake that man's hand for the reason why you roaming around the house for 18 hours a day giving fake speeches in the backyard. I'm not. Mike Pence there with former President Trump. I'm not sure former Vice President Pence and Donald Trump have seen each other.
Nah, that ain't gonna be me. No, you do that. And matter of fact, if you shake his hand, you gonna have to hear about it in the car. Can't believe that. Sat there and married a man. He said he gonna protect the family. You can't even protect yourself. Who did the seating arrangements? Huh? I need to know who did it, because y'all heard the campaigns, right? Y'all heard everything that was said. You heard, but you still gonna sit? Really? After all that was the birtherism, all you just ripped just right there, huh? And speaking of standing on business, Michelle Obama, you know, she was getting ready. She like, oh, you know, I love the Carters. I'm definitely not going to miss that. I will definitely be there. Oh, let me look at these seating. Nah. Yeah, we not doing this. Yeah, I have an issue with my seat. Yeah, I have an issue. No, because I saw what happened. I saw what happened when he went overseas. And cause my sinuses, to something with my sinuses, so I can't. I'm allergic. Yeah, I got an allergy. You put me in the other aisle for security purposes. Okay, well, you know what? Well, how's security gonna handle me being at home during this whole thing? Are they good with that? Now, I'll say I have no idea why it is that Michelle Obama was not present, but something does come to mind.
A convicted felon, a known slumlord, a predator found liable.
But Trump sure was doing a whole lot of talking now, wasn't he? You could tell he don't spend a whole lot of time in church, because you definitely not supposed to be talking that much. Definitely not at a funeral. Really? Where's Michelle? See, last time W kept trying to force candy on us, and she don't like that bottom of the purse candy. You know what I mean? She don't care for the bottom of the purse candy. She didn't want to turn him down like that, so she just decided she was gonna sit this one out. She was gonna be home, but yeah, it don't got nothing to do with her sinuses or allergy or nothing like that. I can certainly understand that. I can certainly understand that. So she's home. Where's that? Kenya? Actually, no, she's in Greenland right now. Yeah, she's in Greenland. So she's just waiting for y'all to come get her. You know what I mean? She's in Greenland. After that, we're gonna go to Gulf of America. You know I plan on running a third time, right?
Yeah, because they don't. I don't obey no rules. That's why I got charges. I plan on running a third time. How about we do it again in 2028? You know what I mean? For it's just a championship, Obama versus Trump for the future of humanity. Now I know you lying. You gonna give me a whole 4-year head start to pick up charges so I can go in with 34 felonies like you did? It's a wrap. You know they'll never elect a brother with no 34 charges, right? Why you ain't tell Mark Robinson that? Huh? Why you ain't tell Mark Robinson? I also thoroughly enjoyed these as well. Now, as much as the people that were watching the stream had a whole lot to say about Trump all during the ceremony, I didn't have as big an issue with Trump. It was Melania that bothered. Who sits at a funeral with a mean mug? You know what I mean? Like she's sitting at a funeral like she ready to fight somebody in the let out. I never seen somebody so mad who just got a free $40 million for Amazon to make content nobody will watch. Where's Michelle? I thought Michelle was gonna be here. Shh! Don't blow it up. Don't blow it up. I text you. I text you what happened. All right. Well, we headed after this. We gonna get some pancakes. I told her I was gonna do that, but I'm gonna head down to MGM right now because I got a free weekend. So Obama out. And you have to thoroughly enjoy Doug Emhoff being forced to converse with Trump while Kamala and Obama have their We have all been there before. Anybody that has been forced to have conversation with their significant others, friends, and their spouses, we've all been in this situation with the one caveat that generally that person has not attacked me and my wife directly. Yeah. And my daughter as well. Generally that hasn't been the case. Matter of fact, Biden need to give Doug Emhoff a medal for not throwing hands. He need to retroactively give Doug Emhoff a medal for conducting himself with class and dignity, because if he would have left in handcuffs, we all would have understood. I also thoroughly enjoyed seeing the vice presidential section with Al Gore and Mike Pence. Hey, you need me to walk you out of here? Huh? I can walk you out of here because I heard they still looking for you outside. Now, there were a ton of people in the comments that were very upset that Trump attended the ceremony, although there were many references to Trump during the ceremony. That I can assure you.
We have an obligation to give hate no safe harbor, and to stand up to what my dad used to say is the greatest sin of all, the abuse of power. That's not about being perfect, because none of us are perfect. We're all fallible, but it's about asking ourselves, are we striving to do things, the right things? What values? What are the values that animate our spirit? Do we operate from fear or hope, ego or generosity?
But I will say this, if he wouldn't have gone, then we would have dragged him for that, right? If he would have not gone with all of the other former presidents to President Carter's funeral, we would have ate him up for that. So the fact that he showed up, I am good with that. It looked like he was falling asleep. I have been there too. So I will have more than enough grounds to drag Trump for this thing or that. I can't I can't drag him for this one. I'm going to let that go. Ohio Congressman Max Miller, on the other hand.
They need to call this what it is. Anti-Semitism. That's what this is. That's what the ICC is going after, and that's what you're condoning from the gentleman of Massachusetts. And I see the support on the other side of the aisle with all your colleagues sitting next to you, fighting right alongside. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Two things, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman who just spoke, the reason why my colleagues are not here is because the Republicans scheduled this debate during President Carter's funeral, which I find to be incredibly disappointing, given President Carter's stature in this country and his commitment to human rights.
Shout out to Massachusetts Jim McGovern for cleaning him up for that. Actually tried to cut a promo on the fact that the Democrats actually were attending President Carter's funeral. Like, we say there's no bar low enough for the right wing in 2025, and they come with things like this. Well, at the very least, we can say that people have been overall respectful of President Carter.
He was a terrible president. That's why he lost in a landslide after his one term. And if it's possible, I think he was even a worse ex-president because of his meddling in U.S. foreign policy, because of his saddling up to dictators around the world, because of his vehement views, anti-Israel views, and more than dabbling in anti-Semitism over the years. He often vexed Democrats. Obama didn't even have him speak at his 2008 convention. He put Bill Clinton in a terrible foreign policy box on a North Korea nuclear issue. I think he was a guy who had a huge ego and believed that he was uniquely positioned to do all these things, even after the American people had roundly and soundly rejected his leadership. So I respect people who run for president and get elected president, but in his particular case, I think he time and again proved why he was never suited for the office in the first place.
Notice I said people and not trolls. I would take my time right now to go in on Scott Jennings, but Jasmine Crockett ate him up right there on CNN this week. Don't worry, I'll have that coming for you as well.
There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California, and the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now, if your house is burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters are?
You can respond and then
listen. I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is black women. So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying, decide that a country of immigrants is failing or people are dying because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House. And I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House.
But I wanted to give some air to the grandson of President Jimmy Carter, and that is Jason Carter, who spoke beautifully and really hit the mood of the day and of the man.
In my church, we sing a song that says, "From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God." I don't know how many people in here can say that. I know I can't. But my grandfather certainly can. From the moment that he woke up until he laid his head, his life was a testament to the goodness of God. And I thank all of you for being here to celebrate this life. To the presidents and first ladies, it is a great honor to have you here. You know the human side of the American presidency like no others, and we appreciate you. To the vice presidents, other distinguished guests, and friends of all kinds, thank you for being here. To those of you who came from all across the world, thank you for being here to celebrate and pay tribute to my grandfather. I say grandfather, but we called him Papa, as many of you know. We called my grandmother Mom Carter, so we spent our time talking about Mom and Papa, and mostly, speaking of the human side of the presidency, just letting people know that they were regular folks. Yes, they spent 4 years in the governor's mansion and 4 years at the White House, but the other 92 years they spent at home in Plains, Georgia. And one of the best ways to demonstrate that they were regular folks is to take them by that home. First of all, it looks like they might have built it themselves. Second of all, my grandfather was likely to show up at the door in some 70s short shorts and Crocs. And then you'd walk in the house and it was like thousands of other grandparents' house all across the South. Fishing trophies on the walls. The refrigerator, of course, was papered with pictures of grandchildren and then great-grandchildren. Their main phone, of course, had a cord and was stuck to the wall in the kitchen, like a museum piece. And demonstrating their Depression-era roots, they had a little rack next to the sink where they would hang Ziploc bags to dry. And demonstrating that they changed with the times. Eventually he did get a cell phone, and one time he called me sort of early on in that process. And on my phone it said, Papa Mobile. So I answered it, of course. I said, hey, Papa. He said, who's this? I said, this is Jason. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm not doing anything. You called me. He said, I didn't call you. I'm taking a picture. Nuclear engineer, right? I mean, they were small town people who never forgot who they were and where they were from, no matter what happened in their lives. But I recognize that we are not here because he was just a regular guy. As you've heard from the other speakers, his political life and his presidency for me was not just ahead of its time, it was prophetic. He had the courage and strength to stick to his principles even when they were politically unpopular. As governor of Georgia half a century ago, he preached an end to racial discrimination and an end to mass incarceration. As president in the 1970s, as you've heard, he protected more land than any other president in history. 50 years ago, he was a climate warrior who pushed for a world where we conserved energy, limited emissions, and traded our reliance on fossil fuels for expanded renewable sources. And by the way, he cut the deficit, wanted to decriminalize marijuana, deregulated so many industries that he gave us cheap flights and, as you heard, craft beer. Basically, all of those years ago, he was the first millennial. And he could make great playlists, as we've heard as well. Maybe this is unbelievable to you, but in my 49 years, I never perceived a difference between his public face and his private one. He was the same person no matter who he was with or where he was. And for me, that's the definition of integrity. That honesty was matched by love, it was matched by faith. And in both public and private, my grandparents did fundamentally live their lives in an effort, as the Bible says, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with their God. Sometimes I feel and felt like I shared my grandfather with the world. Today is one of those days. But really, he shared the world with me. The power of an atom, the beauty and complexity of a South Georgia forest. When we fished, he celebrated the majesty of everything from the smallest minnow to that grand circulation of waters. And he shared this love with my boys, taking these Atlanta public school kids out into the fields to show them about row crops and wild plums. In the end, his life is a love story. And of course, it's a love story about Jimmy and Rosalind and their 77 years of marriage and service. As the song says, they were the flagship of the fleet. And rest assured that in these last weeks, he told us that he was ready to see her again. But his life was also a broader love story, about love for his fellow humans and about living out the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. I believe that that love is what taught him and told him to preach the power of human rights, not just for some people, but for all people. It focused him on the power and the promise of democracy, its love for freedom, its requirement and founding belief in the wisdom of regular people raising their voices, and the requirement that you respect all of those voices, not just some. That conviction made him a naval officer who believed and demonstrated, as you've heard, that the greatest power of America was not the military, but its values. And those values were personal to him, and he lived them both publicly and privately. As you heard Stu say, as president, he gave voice to dissidents, stood up to dictators, brought countries together in peace. His heart broke for the people of Israel. It broke for the people of Palestine, and he spent his life trying to bring peace to that holy land. And he talked about it at the dinner table. It was the same in public as it was in private. And for the last 40 years, as you've heard, he spent his time living out that love and that faith alongside the poorest and most marginalized people in the world. And that work, again, has been based fundamentally on love and respect. The Carter Center has 3,500 employees, but only a couple hundred in the United States. The rest are spread throughout the countries where we work: Ethiopia, South Sudan, Chad, Bangladesh, and all of the Carter Center's programs are based on a respect, that same respect for the power of regular people, even if they are in tiny villages miles from anywhere else. To give one example, we've all heard a lot lately about guinea worm disease. It's an ancient and debilitating disease of poverty, and that disease will have existed from the dawn of humanity until Jimmy Carter. When he started working on this disease, there were 3.5 million cases in humans every year. Last year, there were 14. And the thing that's remarkable is that this disease is not eliminated with medicine. It's eliminated essentially by neighbors talking to neighbors about how to collect water in the poorest and most marginalized villages in the world. And those neighbors truly were my grandfather's partners for the last 40 years. And as this disease has been eliminated in every village in Nigeria, every village in Sudan or Uganda, what's left behind in those tiny 600-person villages is an army of Jimmy and Rosalind Carters who have demonstrated their own power to change their world. And that is a fundamental truth about my grandfather. It begins where it ends. When he saw a tiny 600-person village that everybody else thinks of as poor, he recognized it. That's where he was from. That's who he was. And he never saw it as a place to send pity. It was always a place to find partnership and power, and a place to carry out that commandment to love your neighbor as yourself. Essentially, he eradicated a disease with love and respect. He waged peace with love and respect. He led this nation with love and respect. To me, this life was a love story from the moment that he woke up until he laid his head. Conclude with this. As Andy Young told me, he may be gone, but he's not gone far. The outpouring of love and support that we have felt from you and from around the world has shows how many lives he has touched and how his spirit will live on in many ways for us. He'll be in the kitchen making pancakes, or in his wood shop finishing a cradle for a great-grandchild, standing in a trout stream with Mom Carter, or for me, just walking those Georgia fields and forests where he's from. Thank you.